Ancient stonework displays a level of precision that should not exist. This video will guide you through the evidence of a lost civilization that mastered stone carving to an atomic level. You will learn the secrets behind stone blocks fitted so perfectly that not even a blade can slide between them. How did ancient artisans achieve surfaces smoother than modern machinery? What knowledge allowed them to cut granite with such impossible accuracy? By the end, you will understand the profound technological puzzle that challenges our entire history of innovation. What does it mean when the past appears more advanced than our present? The stones of Pumapunku do not look like they were carved. They look as if they were stamped out of the earth by some immense, perfect machine. When early 20th century explorers first cleared the rubble from this high plateau in Bolivia, they uncovered a geometric puzzle scattered across the landscape. What they found were not simple blocks, but intricate stone forms, each one a unique piece of a massive, interlocking assembly. Each blocks with razor-sharp right angles, slots and tabs carved with impossible symmetry, and surfaces so flat and smooth they felt like polished glass. These were not the rough-hewn monuments of a primitive culture. They were precision-engineered components, each piece of andesite and red granite, some weighing over 100 tons, was cut and finished to a degree that defied every known tool of the era. There are no chisel marks, no signs of grinding or pounding. The edges are crisp, the corners perfect. Explorers reported that the stones fit together so seamlessly that when placed, you could not force the thin blade of a knife between them. This was a level of accuracy measured in fractions of a millimeter. The immediate question was not just how they were moved, but how they were made. What tool could cut granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, with such clean, atomic-level precision? Archaeologist Arthur Poznański dedicated decades of his life to studying this site. He noted that the astronomical alignments of the structures, along with the sheer sophistication of the stonework, suggested a timeline that did not fit conventional history. The craftsmanship pointed to a knowledge of geometry, engineering, and material science that should not have existed. This was the first major clue, the spark that ignited a mystery. These stones were not merely stacked, they were engineered. The realization that ancient builders possessed a lost and profound technique for working stone began to take root, forcing a complete re-evaluation of what we thought we knew about the past. The deeper mystery was the tool itself, the invisible instrument capable of such clean, impossible cuts. From the scattered ruins of Pumapunku, this same signature of impossible precision appears again and again across the globe. High in the Peruvian Andes, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman presents a monumental puzzle. Its walls are composed of colossal limestone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, each one a unique, irregular polygon. Yet these gigantic stones fit together so perfectly that the joints between them are virtually invisible. The curves and angles interlock in a way that has withstood centuries of earthquakes, a testament to a masterful understanding of both geometry and seismic forces. Far across the world, in the sands of Egypt, the Osirian at Abydos displays the same phenomenon. Here, builders used immense blocks of red granite, a stone so hard it defies conventional tools. The surfaces are flawlessly flat, the corners sharp enough to seem cut by laser, not by the copper chisels we assume were available. Then there is Nan Madol, a city built upon coral reefs in the remote Pacific. Its structures are raised from countless basalt logs, each one precisely shaped and stacked like geometric firewood, creating artificial islands and canals that echo a sophistication lost to time. The environmental challenges these builders overcame are staggering. They quarried stone from mountainsides, transported 100-ton blocks across impossible terrain, and erected structures in some of the most unforgiving locations on Earth, from high deserts to ocean lagoons. The fact that such similar construction principles emerged independently in these isolated corners of the world is a mystery that shakes the foundations of conventional history. It suggests a shared, advanced knowledge of stoneworking that spanned continents, a technological thread connecting cultures we never thought could have met. But to truly grasp the depth of this mystery, we must look closer at the individual stones themselves and the microscopic evidence they hold. Granite, diorite, and basalt are not just stones, they are formidable natural obstacles. Their crystalline structures are a chaotic mosaic of interlocking minerals, each with a different hardness. When struck with a conventional tool, these crystals fracture unpredictably, leaving a rough, shattered surface. To achieve a perfectly smooth, flat plane on such a material is like trying to polish a pile of broken glass into a flawless mirror. Modern workshops rely on diamond-tipped saws and computer-controlled grinding machines to even attempt such a feat, and even then, it is a slow, demanding process. Yet, across these ancient sites, we see vast expanses of granite and basalt polished to a mirror-like finish, with edges and corners that meet at geometrically perfect angles. This was not rough construction. This was the work of masters who understood the very soul of the stone. The quarries themselves tell a story of immense ambition. These stones were not gathered from a nearby riverbed. They were extracted from solid mountainsides, often miles from the construction site. In Aswan, Egypt, the unfinished obelisk remains attached to the bedrock, a single piece of red granite that would have weighed over 1,000 tons. It shows the clear methods of its attempted extraction, with channels painstakingly carved around it. But how did they manage this with the simple tools we attribute to them? The same question echoes at the diorite quarries for the Olmec heads in Mexico and the andesite sources for Pumapunku high in the Bolivian Andes. The raw material was chosen deliberately, sought out for its specific properties of strength and longevity. Moving these multi-ton blocks from quarry to construction site presents another layer of almost incomprehensible difficulty. We are asked to believe that 100-ton blocks of granite were floated down rivers on reed boats or dragged on wooden rollers across dozens of miles of desert and mountain terrain. The logistics involved are staggering, requiring not just immense manpower but a profound knowledge of physics, leverage, and material strength to prevent the colossal stones from cracking under their own weight. The choice to use such impossibly difficult materials and to transport them across such vast distances was not an accident. It speaks to a deep, sophisticated understanding of geology and engineering. They were not just building for their own time, they were building for eternity. And to see how they achieved this, we must look beyond the quarries and examine the stones for the marks of the tools that shaped them. The most telling evidence is not in the grand scale of these walls, but in the microscopic gaps between the stones. A standard razor blade is roughly 100 micrometers thick. In numerous ancient structures, the seams between multi-ton blocks are often less than that. This is not a rough approximation. It is a feat of engineering that implies the use of precision instruments for measurement and alignment. The famous 12-angle stone in Cusco is a perfect example. This single block of dark andesite is not a rectangle, but a complex polygon with 12 distinct, perfectly planed faces. It interlocks with the surrounding stones in a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, a connection so exact that it has survived countless seismic events that have toppled later colonial buildings erected on the same ground. The secret to this resilience lies in the joint itself. Unlike a rigid mortar construction that can crack and crumble, These interlocking polygonal walls move as a single, flexible unit during an earthquake. The stones shift and settle, but they never pull apart. This reveals a profound understanding of dynamic loads and structural mechanics that we would only rediscover millennia later. The builders chose the most difficult path possible, shaping each unique block to fit only its specific neighbors, a process that would have required an immense investment of time and knowledge. Why go to such extraordinary lengths? The absence of any binding mortar suggests a philosophy that placed ultimate value on perfect geometry and fit. The stone itself was the adhesive held in place by gravity and precision. This was not merely construction, it was a form of art, a physical manifestation of a belief system where harmony and balance were literally set in stone. To achieve this, however, they must have possessed tools far beyond simple chisels and hammers. The search for these tools leads us from the finished walls back to the very moment of creation, to the quarries and the marks left upon the raw stone. The evidence of this lost technology is not just in the joints, but in the very feel of the stone itself. Run your hand across the interior of one of the granite boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara, and your fingers would register a surface as smooth as polished glass. These are not small artifacts. We are talking about colossal containers, each one carved from a single block of solid granite, weighing tens of tons. Their interiors are hollowed out into perfect geometric shapes, with corners so sharp and surfaces so flawlessly flat that they reflect light like a mirror. This level of finish is not merely decorative, it is a technical specification. Modern engineers use a measure called surface roughness, often quantified in micrometers. To achieve a similar polish on granite today, you would need a series of progressively finer diamond abrasives and powerful, automated machinery. The ancient artisans achieved this not on a small trinket, but across the vast, square-meter interiors of these immense boxes, with a consistency that suggests a controlled, repeatable industrial process. How could such a result be possible with the simple tools of sand, water, and copper? The friction required to polish granite to this degree would have worn down any copper tool in minutes, and the sheer physical effort of hand sanding such a hard stone to a micrometer-level finish across such a large area is almost beyond comprehension. Researchers using laser scanners have mapped these surfaces, confirming their extraordinary flatness. The data reveals planes that deviate by less than the width of a human hair over distances of several meters. This rules out natural weathering, which would leave a wavy, uneven texture. What we are seeing is the deliberate, masterful work of a tool or technique that could somehow remove material from granite with atomic precision, shaving it down molecule by molecule until not even a microscopic irregularity remained. This was not just carving, it was a form of alchemy, transforming rough stone into a perfect, luminous plane. The implications are staggering, pointing to a method of working stone that we have yet to rediscover, a silent challenge from the past that asks us to reconsider the very timeline of human innovation. These perfect surfaces and joints are only one part of the puzzle. The true depth of this lost knowledge becomes clear when you measure the angles. On colossal blocks weighing dozens of tons, the corners meet at exactly 90 degrees with a deviation of less than 1/10 of a degree. This is not the kind of precision you achieve by eye or with a simple wooden square. This is the accuracy of a machine shop, replicated on a monumental scale across continents and centuries. In the granite corridors of an Egyptian temple, the corners are sharp and true. High on a windswept Peruvian plateau, the same geometrical perfection appears in the mighty walls of a fortress. Modern surveyors using digital laser levels and high-precision protractors have repeatedly verified this. The data does not lie. These ancient artisans were not approximating. They were executing a blueprint with a level of exactness that would challenge modern builders even with our advanced tools. This consistency is perhaps the most telling clue. It was not a happy accident or the work of one singular genius. This was a standardized technique, a rigorous quality control that was passed down and applied to vastly different projects. Whether the material was the speckled granite of Aswan or the dark volcanic andesite of the Andes, the standard remained the same, a perfect right angle. This points to a sophisticated and deeply ingrained mathematical tradition. The builders understood the principles of geometry not as abstract concepts, but as practical, essential rules for creating structures that could defy time itself. They possessed a working knowledge of perpendicularity and plane geometry that allowed them to translate a theoretical 90 degrees into a physical reality on a multi-ton block of unforgiving stone. How could they possibly maintain this precision from the initial quarrying through the arduous journey of transport to the final placement in a rising wall? The process implies the use of master templates, or guiding instruments of incredible durability and accuracy, tools that have since vanished from the archaeological record. This geometrical perfection is a silent language, a testament to a technical tradition so advanced and so resilient that its signature was stamped across the ancient world. But the mystery deepens when you step inside. Within the confines of ancient chambers and narrow passageways, another layer of impossible precision reveals itself. Look closely at the corners where three walls meet. In most stonework, even the most skilled, an internal corner is a point of weakness. The act of carving inevitably leaves a slight radius, a tiny curve where the tool could not perfectly reach. Yet in places like the Serapeum of Saqqara or deep within certain Andean structures, these internal corners are not rounded. They are sharp. They are geometrically perfect intersections where three flat planes meet in a crisp, clean point with no sign of chipping or crumbling. This is a detail that defies the physics of hand tools. To understand why, think of trying to carve the inside corner of a wooden box with a chisel. The tool has a physical width, a bulk that prevents it from cleanly reaching the absolute vertex where the three surfaces converge. You are left with a small, unavoidable radius. Modern computer-controlled milling machines struggle with this very issue, requiring specialized, ultra-thin tools and complex programming to achieve a truly sharp internal corner in a hard material. The ancient builders, working on a monumental scale in granite and basalt, achieved this repeatedly. The presence of these perfect internal angles tells us something profound about their technique. It was not a brutal process of pounding and grinding. It was a method of material removal so controlled, so precise, that it could cleanly define a corner at the atomic level, leaving the crystalline structure of the stone intact right up to the very edge. This was not merely functional construction. These corners often appear in ceremonial spaces and carefully crafted passageways, indicating a desire for perfection that went far beyond structural necessity. It was an aesthetic and technical ideal. Finding this same feature in the stonework of cultures separated by oceans and millennia presents a haunting question. Did a singular, advanced knowledge of stoneworking circle the globe, carried by a civilization now lost to time? Or did multiple cultures independently stumble upon the same profound physical principles, converging on an identical solution for mastering solid stone? These silent, sharp corners are more than just architectural details. They are the fingerprints of the makers, a minute but undeniable signature of a technology we are only just beginning to comprehend. This same quest for perfection extends from the grand structures to the smallest of details. Beyond the flawless surfaces and sharp corners, another layer of precision reveals itself in the carved patterns and symbols that adorn these ancient stones. From the hieroglyphs covering Egyptian temple walls to the intricate geometric motifs found in South America, a remarkable consistency emerges. The depth of each carved line, each channel and curve remains uniform, often varying by less than a single millimeter across an entire expanse of stone. Imagine the immense wall of a temple covered from top to bottom with thousands of individual characters. To the naked eye, the text appears perfectly even, as if printed by a machine. But this was not printing. This was the work of a hand wielding a tool against granite or basalt. Maintaining such a consistent depth across such a vast area, over different angles and on stone of varying hardness, is a technical challenge of the highest order. The tool would have to apply the exact same pressure for every single strike, a feat of physical control that seems almost superhuman. A modern artisan using a hammer and chisel would inevitably create variations. A slightly tired arm, a moment of distraction, a harder patch of crystalline structure within the stone, any of these would cause a deeper or shallower cut. The ancient work shows no such inconsistencies. This points to something far more sophisticated than freehand skill. It suggests the use of a guiding system, perhaps a template or a mechanical apparatus that controlled the cutting tool, ensuring it could only penetrate to a predetermined depth. This is the kind of precision control we associate with a modern router, a tool that uses a depth guard to create perfectly uniform grooves in wood. To see this principle applied to carving granite with such flawless results hints at a lost technology for stoneworking. The implications are profound. This uniform depth was not merely an aesthetic choice, it served a vital purpose. Inscriptions carved to the exact same depth would weather time uniformly, preventing certain sections from fading faster than others. The visual harmony it created was a reflection of a deeper, underlying order, a belief that beauty and precision were one and the same. This level of control transforms the artisan from a simple carver into a master technician, operating a sophisticated process that could be repeated with perfect accuracy, day after day, year after year. It speaks of a formalized tradition, a standardized training, and a rigorous quality control that ensured every piece of work, from the mightiest block to the smallest glyph, met an unyielding standard of excellence. The final proof of this lost technology is not visible to the naked eye. It is hidden on a microscopic level, etched into the very stone itself. When researchers place a high-powered microscope over these impossibly smooth surfaces, they find a landscape of tiny, parallel grooves. These are not the random, chaotic scratches left by a hand wielding a chisel or a piece of sand. They are uniform, with a consistent spacing and direction that runs for surprising distances without wavering. The pattern looks less like the work of a human artisan and more like the feed marks from a modern milling machine, where a cutting head advances across a surface at a fixed rate, shaving off material in a perfectly even pass. How could an ancient craftsperson, using a simple abrasive paste and a stone or copper tool, create such a uniform microscopic signature? The human arm is not a machine. It tires, it shakes, its pressure varies. The resulting marks should be uneven, crossing over one another in a random web. The evidence we see is the opposite, a controlled, mechanical pattern that suggests the tool was guided by something other than muscle alone. This discovery has sparked intense debate. Some researchers propose the use of advanced, lost abrasives. Perhaps they possessed a method for creating synthetic diamonds or another super-hard crystalline powder, suspended in a fluid and applied with a rotating tool to achieve that machine-like consistency. Others theorize about vibrational cutting methods, where a tool tip vibrates at an extremely high frequency, effectively fluidizing the stone at a microscopic level and allowing it to be scraped away in a very controlled manner. This is a technology we use today for cutting ultra-hard materials, and its signature can resemble the parallel marks found on these ancient stones. The most puzzling aspect is the complete absence of the tools themselves at these sites. We find no factories, no workshops filled with the advanced machinery that such work would seem to require. There are no caches of diamond-tipped drills or complex sonic cutters. This void in the archaeological record is as profound as the precision in the stone. It forces us to consider a difficult possibility. What if the technology was so advanced, so specialized, that its components were not the simple chisels and hammers we expect to find? What if the tools themselves were portable, or perhaps even reusable, in a way that left no durable remains for us to discover thousands of years later? These microscopic grooves are the ghostly echoes of that process. They are the only physical evidence of the instrument's passing, a permanent record of a single, perfect motion that transformed rough stone into a geometric marvel. This geometrical obsession extends far beyond the 90-degree angle, revealing itself in vast, harmonious compositions. Across entire architectural complexes, from the sprawling foundations of a temple to the intricate mosaic of a fortress wall, we find a relentless pursuit of symmetrical perfection. The entire site plan of a place like the Osirian or the central complex of Pumapunku was not laid out haphazardly. It was conceived as a single, unified geometric diagram, scaled up to a monumental size. The relationships between walls, plazas, and chambers are governed by precise ratios. You might find that the length of a courtyard is exactly twice its width, or that the distance between two key pillars forms the diagonal of a perfect square. This is not guesswork. This is applied mathematics on a grand scale. How could ancient surveyors, without modern laser rangefinders or steel measuring tapes, ensure that these proportions remained flawless across distances of hundreds of feet? They must have possessed a system of measurement and alignment of breathtaking accuracy, one that could translate a small, detailed plan into a colossal, physical reality without losing a fraction of its intended harmony. This precision manifests in the decorative elements as well. Look at the repeating patterns carved into a lintel or a frieze, the spacing between each identical symbol, the depth of each relief, the curvature of each line, all maintain a rhythmic consistency that feels almost musical. This visual rhythm creates a powerful aesthetic appeal, a sense of order and balance that is deeply pleasing to the human eye. Yet this symmetry was far more than just decoration. It was integral to the structure's very soul. A perfectly symmetrical building distributes weight and stress evenly. It resists lateral forces like wind or seismic shocks with a unified strength that an asymmetrical structure lacks. The builders understood this intrinsically. Their pursuit of perfect proportion was a dual quest for beauty and for immortality, creating forms that were not only visually stunning but also engineered to stand for millennia. This reveals a philosophical approach where the cosmos itself was seen as an expression of mathematical order. By replicating this celestial symmetry in their stonework, they were, in a sense, building a piece of the eternal into the mortal world. The stones were not just placed, they were composed following a silent, sacred score written in the language of geometry. Copper chisels and stone hammers could never have carved these stones. Modern experiments consistently prove this. An artisan using exact replicas of these ancient tools can, with immense effort, shape a block of granite, but the result is always a rough, pitted surface covered in the chaotic scars of a brutal struggle. The fine, parallel grooves and mirror-like polish found on the original works remain entirely out of reach. This glaring disconnect forces a difficult question. If the tools we keep finding in the archaeological record are not the right ones, what unimaginable instruments did these master builders actually use? One compelling theory points to lost alloys. Perhaps they perfected a metallurgy that has since vanished, creating a bronze or copper alloy infused with unknown elements, granting it a hardness and durability far beyond anything we have recovered. Another idea involves sonic technology. Could specific, powerful sound frequencies have been used to temporarily alter the crystalline structure of the stone, making it pliable, almost like soft clay, allowing it to be shaped and smoothed with relative ease? There are also accounts in both legend and some fragmented historical texts of plant-based solutions that could chemically soften granite, a lost alchemy that would turn solid rock into a workable material. The evidence for these ideas is not entirely absent. Look at an unfinished obelisk still lying in an Egyptian quarry, and you can see channels carved around it. But the tool marks within those channels are smooth and precise, not the shattered, uneven fractures that pounding with stone balls would create. This suggests a method of extraction that was controlled, almost surgical. The search for answers has spawned a whole field of experimental archaeology, where dedicated researchers try to replicate the ancient results using only the materials and knowledge available at the time. So far, the chasm between their best efforts and the perfection of the original stones remains vast and unbridged. The tools themselves have disappeared, leaving behind only their flawless, impossible handiwork as a silent, enduring challenge to our understanding of history. The stones themselves are a silent library of advanced mathematics. Look beyond the sheer weight and size, and you begin to see a hidden language of geometry, a code of proportions and ratios that governed every cut and every alignment. This was not merely an aesthetic choice, it was the very framework of their construction. The precision of a single stone's angles was only the beginning, the application of a much deeper, theoretical knowledge that scaled up to encompass entire cities. The builders understood that to create structures that could withstand millennia, they needed to build in harmony with universal mathematical principles. This knowledge is most evident in the celestial alignments. Entire temple complexes were oriented to the solstices or the rising of specific stars with an accuracy that required not just careful observation, but a sophisticated understanding of spherical geometry and long-term astronomical cycles. A deviation of even a fraction of a degree over the course of a massive construction would render such an alignment meaningless, yet they achieved this repeatedly, locking their architecture into the cosmic clockwork. This celestial connection reveals a culture for which the heavens were a blueprint, and their stonework was the earthly reflection of that perfect mathematical order. The same principles guided the proportions of individual chambers and plazas. Researchers have identified the recurring use of specific ratios, like the golden ratio, in the dimensions of doorways, the layout of courtyards, and the relationships between different structural elements. This ratio, approximately 1.618 to 1, is found throughout nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of leaves on a stem. By incorporating it into their designs, the builders were tapping into a fundamental pattern of harmony and growth, creating spaces that feel inherently balanced and resonant to the human spirit. Even more complex mathematical concepts appear embedded in the architecture. The value of pi, the constant relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter, is encoded in the dimensions of certain structures. In some pyramids, for instance, the perimeter of the base relates to the height in a ratio that yields a very close approximation of pi. Similarly, the dimensions of some stone blocks form perfect Pythagorean triples, right-angled triangles where the squares of the two shorter sides add up to the square of the longest side, a concept formally described thousands of years later. This integration of abstract mathematics with practical construction points to a seamless connection between the thinker and the artisan. The theoretical knowledge of the scholar was not locked away in a library. It was the indispensable tool of the stonemason. This mathematical foundation was the invisible machinery that enabled the physical precision we see today. It was the master plan that allowed them to quarry, shape, and assemble multi-ton blocks with the accuracy of a watchmaker, creating a legacy in stone that continues to challenge and inspire our modern understanding of the ancient world. This celestial code is literally carved in stone, built into the very alignment of the walls. At Machu Picchu, perched high in the Andes, the Intihuatana stone is a masterpiece of this dual purpose. It is not just a beautifully carved granite outcrop, it is a precise astronomical instrument. On the equinoxes, the sun stands directly above this pillar, casting no shadow at all, a perfect alignment that marks the balance of the year. The windows and doorways of key structures throughout the city are not placed at random. They are oriented to frame the rising sun on the solstice, or to pinpoint the location of the Southern Cross in the night sky. This was a city engineered to track the heavens. The same principle echoes across the world on the Giza plateau. The Great Pyramid is not just square, its sides are aligned to the 4 cardinal directions with a deviation of less than 1/10 of a degree. This is an accuracy that rivals modern satellite surveys. The narrow shafts leading from the king's chamber were not air vents. They were precisely angled telescopes of stone, pointing directly to the belt of Orion and the pole star of that era. To achieve this, the builders had to possess a profound understanding of the slow precession of the stars, the 26,000-year cycle that shifts our view of the heavens. They were building for an alignment that would only be perfect for a brief window in time, yet they captured it with absolute precision. This fusion of cosmic knowledge and stoneworking skill reveals a culture that saw no separation between science and spirit. The movement of the stars was as tangible to them as the granite beneath their hands, and they wove both into a single, enduring testament. The architecture itself became a permanent observatory, a machine built from stone to measure the rhythms of the universe. This was not just about marking time for planting seasons. It was about anchoring their world to the cosmic order, creating a physical representation of their place in the cosmos. The incredible effort required to orient multi-ton blocks with such celestial accuracy tells us that this was not a secondary consideration. It was the very reason for their existence. The stone was their canvas and the sky was their blueprint. The mystery of the carving is dwarfed by an even greater logistical nightmare. How do you move a 100-ton block of granite, polished to a mirror finish, across miles of rugged terrain without so much as a single scratch? These were not rough quarry stones, they were finished components, their surfaces and edges perfected before their journey even began. A single mishap, one jarring impact against a rock, would have shattered a corner or marred that impossible smoothness, ruining months, perhaps years, of meticulous work. The transportation of these stones was not a separate task. It was the final, most critical step in the precision manufacturing process. Conventional explanations point to sledges, rollers, and vast amounts of manpower. We can picture teams of workers hauling on ropes, dragging a colossal stone on a wooden sledge, perhaps lubricating the path with water or mud to reduce friction. For smaller blocks on flat ground, this is plausible, but the terrain these builders conquered was often brutally unforgiving, involving steep mountain passes, shifting desert sands, or dense, uneven jungle. Moving a multi-ton block on wooden rollers across such ground would be a chaotic, violent affair. Every bump and dip would transmit tremendous shock through the stone, threatening its integrity and inevitably damaging those fragile, razor-sharp edges. The idea that they could achieve this while maintaining a surface smooth to within a fraction of a millimeter defies the physics of such a method. This has led to more speculative theories. Could they have mastered a form of acoustic levitation, using precisely tuned vibrations to neutralize the stone's immense weight, allowing it to be guided almost effortlessly? There are legends and fragmented accounts that speak of stones becoming weightless, moved by the sound of a trumpet or a chant. While it sounds like pure myth, the persistent correlation between these stories and the sites of the most impossible stonework gives one pause. Another idea involves a lost understanding of Earth energies or anti-gravity, a way to manipulate the very forces that bind matter together. The complete absence of any tool marks from transport on the stones themselves is as telling as the precision of their cuts. There are no gouges from ropes, no abrasions from dragging, no cracks from uneven stress. It is as if these monumental blocks were gently placed into position by an invisible hand. This forces a profound reconsideration. Perhaps their technology was not just about cutting stone, but about moving it through space in a completely different way. The method of transportation and the method of carving may have been two sides of the same coin, parts of a unified, advanced technological system that has left no obvious trace behind. Solving how they moved these stones is not just about understanding logistics. It is the key to unlocking the true nature of their entire civilization. The most advanced laser scanners now allow us to measure these ancient surfaces with an accuracy once thought impossible. When a digital model of a stone from Pumapunku is compared to a block cut by a modern computer-controlled saw, the data reveals something astonishing. In terms of pure geometrical perfection, the flatness of the ancient planes and the trueness of their right angles often match, and in some critical cases even surpass, the tolerances achieved by our most precise power tools. A modern diamond-tipped saw can produce an incredibly clean cut, but it still leaves behind a subtle waviness, a signature of the blade's vibration and the immense forces involved. The ancient surfaces, by contrast, show no such harmonic imperfection. They are preternaturally still, as if the stone was calmed into its final form rather than conquered. This is not a matter of one method being universally better, but a stark difference in philosophy. We achieve our precision through immense power and computerized control, forcing the material to submit. Their method, whatever it was, seems to have worked in harmony with the stone, achieving a result that appears almost gentle by comparison. Modern workshops can certainly replicate the flatness, but only after a lengthy process of grinding and polishing that follows the initial cut. The ancient work suggests a technique where the cutting and the final finishing were one and the same act, a seamless process that left the stone in its perfect state from the very beginning. This side-by-side comparison reveals a gap not in our ability, but in our understanding of efficiency. We can get to the same destination, but our journey is loud, energy-intensive, and leaves a trail of waste. Theirs was silent, seemingly effortless, and produced a flawless result in a single, mysterious step. What does this say about the path of technological progress? We have built a vast and complex industrial system to reach a level of precision that another culture achieved through a completely different and now lost branch of knowledge. It forces us to wonder if our definition of advancement is the only one, or if an entire school of physics and material science once existed, only to vanish without a trace, leaving behind only its perfect stone artifacts as evidence of its existence. So who were the hands behind this impossible precision? Conventional archaeology points to the cultures we know, attributing the walls of Sacsayhuaman to the Inca and the pyramids of Giza to the ancient Egyptians. This makes a certain historical sense, as these civilizations were present when the first European explorers arrived, yet a profound question remains. The official tools ascribed to these cultures, the copper chisels and stone hammers found in the archaeological record, are fundamentally incapable of producing the work we see. This creates a puzzling gap between the culture we recognize and the technology they supposedly possessed. If the Inca built these walls, where are the tools that could cut andesite with machine-like accuracy? If the Egyptians carved the Serapeum boxes, where are the workshops filled with the diamond-tipped drills required to hollow out solid granite? The artifacts we have found tell one story, but the stones themselves tell a completely different, more advanced one. This has led researchers to look deeper into the cultural evidence. In Egypt, for instance, the hieroglyphs speak of a much earlier time, a golden age ruled by the gods when the foundations of their sacred sites were laid. The ancient Egyptians themselves seemed to revere these structures as the work of a far older, more sophisticated people, the Shemsu Hor, or followers of Horus. Similarly, Inca legends describe the megalithic sites as the work of the Viracocha, a race of master builders who came from across the sea, possessing knowledge that allowed them to soften and shape stone. These are not just myths, they are cultural memories passed down through generations that consistently point to an origin story involving a lost, advanced influence. When you examine the sites themselves, the evidence becomes even more compelling. At Pumapunku, the sheer complexity of the stonework is unlike anything the Tiwanaku culture, to whom it is conventionally attributed, produced elsewhere. The style is abrupt, almost alien, and then it stops. There is no gradual evolution of technique, no crude early attempts that slowly improve. The precision appears fully formed, as if the knowledge was imported whole, used, and then lost. Mainstream archaeology explains this as the peak of a local technological evolution, but the absence of any developmental evidence is a glaring hole in that theory. The alternative possibility is that we are looking at the work of a precursor civilization, a culture so ancient that its name has been forgotten, leaving only its indestructible stonework as a testament to its existence. This is not a fringe idea, but a serious scholarly debate centered on a single, unresolved conflict. How do we reconcile the established timeline of human history with the physical proof of a technology that shatters it? Understanding this cultural context is not about replacing one set of names with another. It is about grappling with the uncomfortable idea that our map of the past is incomplete, and that the true architects of these wonders may still be waiting silently for us to rediscover their story. The established timelines for these sites present a paradox that challenges our historical narrative. Conventional archaeology relies on methods like carbon dating to place the construction of Pumapunku around 500 to 600 AD, and the Great Pyramids of Giza more than 4,500 years ago. These dates fit neatly within the recognized rise of the Inca or Old Kingdom Egyptian civilizations. Yet the technological fingerprint left in the stone tells a different story, one that seems wildly out of sync with the other artifacts we find from those eras. For the same cultures that supposedly carved granite with atomic precision are also credited with using simple copper chisels, stone hammers, and chert tools for all other purposes. We find no workshops filled with the advanced machinery this work would require, no tool marks on unfinished blocks that demonstrate a gradual evolution toward such perfection. The pinnacle of their stoneworking ability appears suddenly, fully formed, and then it vanishes just as abruptly. This is not how technology typically develops. We expect to see a progression from crude attempts to refined mastery, with the tools improving alongside the results. Here, that entire developmental sequence is missing. The most precise work is often the oldest at a given site, with later additions showing a marked decline in quality. as if a superior knowledge was inherited, used, and then slowly forgotten. This pattern forces a difficult question. Are we accurately dating the moment of construction, or are we merely dating the moment of rediscovery, when a later culture found these magnificent pre-existing ruins and built their own simpler structures around them? The controversy deepens when we examine the dating methods themselves. Carbon dating is incredibly useful, but it has a critical limitation. It can only date organic material like wood, bone, or charcoal. At a megalithic site, this often means dating a piece of timber used in a later repair, or a charcoal fragment from a campfire lit by people who inhabited the ruins long after they were built. This provides a date for human activity at the location, but not necessarily a date for the quarrying and placement of the original, impossible stones. Stratigraphy, the study of soil layers, can also be misinterpreted. Over millennia, earthquakes, floods, and human settlement churn the earth, potentially burying newer material beneath older layers or vice versa. Some researchers point to geological and astronomical evidence to propose much older dates. At the Sphinx enclosure in Giza, for instance, studies of water erosion on the limestone walls suggest a period of heavy rainfall that would place its carving thousands of years earlier than the standard timeline, in an era when the climate was radically different. Similarly, the celestial alignments encoded into many structures, like the shafts within the Great Pyramid pointing to specific stars, only align perfectly with the night sky as it appeared millennia earlier than the conventional construction date. These are not fringe ideas, but serious hypotheses based on physical and astronomical data that create a persistent, unresolved tension in the historical record. Resolving this timeline is not just an academic exercise. It is the key to understanding the very nature of this lost knowledge. If the precision was achieved within the known historical periods, it represents a breathtaking, isolated peak of technological genius that was somehow never applied to any other facet of life, a paradox in itself. If, however, the stones are far older, it points to the existence of a precursor civilization, a culture with a completely different technological pathway, whose legacy was so profound that later peoples revered the ruins as the work of gods. The silence of the stones is not an absence of evidence, but a challenge to our methods of listening. They ask us to reconsider not just when they were built, but what we truly mean by the rise of human civilization. The very air and earth conspired to protect these silent marvels. Across the deserts of Egypt and the high, arid plains of the Andes, a remarkable lack of moisture became the greatest guardian of ancient precision. In these dry climates, the primary agents of erosion, water and ice, are almost entirely absent. There is no freezing and thawing cycle to pry apart crystalline structures, no acidic rain to slowly dissolve mineral surfaces, and very little biological growth like moss or lichen to etch away at the stone. The result is a level of preservation that can feel almost unnerving, as if the artisans packed up their tools only yesterday. The razor-sharp edges of a granite box in the Serapeum or the mirror-like plane of an andesite block at Pumapunku survive not merely as weathered relics, but as near-pristine examples of their original condition. This allows us to see the work as it was truly intended, giving us an unclouded window into the capabilities of its creators. In more temperate or tropical regions, such precision would have been erased within a few centuries, softened and rounded by the relentless forces of nature. The survival of these microscopic details is in itself a form of environmental evidence, telling us that these structures were placed in locations chosen not just for spiritual or strategic reasons, but for their long-term stability. The geology of the sites themselves played a crucial role. Stable bedrock foundations, free from the constant shifting of waterlogged soils or active tectonic fault lines, provided a solid, unchanging base. This prevented the subtle settling and shifting that can crack even the most perfectly joined walls over time. At Sacsayhuaman, the massive polygonal blocks were not merely placed on the ground, they were keyed directly into the living rock of the mountain itself, creating a single, unified mass that could flex and move during seismic events without collapsing. The architecture often included its own protective features. Deeply recessed doorways sheltered intricate carvings from direct rainfall and wind-driven sand. The massive, overhanging lintels of certain structures acted as giant umbrellas, shielding the delicate, precisely carved glyphs on the walls beneath from the elements. In a very real sense, the builders engineered not only the stones but their entire environment to ensure their work would endure. This deliberate foresight is a testament to their long-term vision. They were not building for a generation but for epochs. The fact that we can still run our fingers over a surface smoother than glass, or measure an angle true to a fraction of a degree, is a direct result of this ancient, multi-layered strategy of preservation. It is a partnership between human genius and planetary circumstance, a collaboration across millennia that allows the evidence of a lost technology to speak to us today with stunning clarity. The silence of these stones is an illusion. Recent research has uncovered a hidden dimension to this ancient precision, a layer of design that engages not just the eye but the ear. In certain chambers and corridors, the perfectly angled walls and flawlessly flat surfaces do more than just stand the test of time. They interact with sound itself. Within the confines of a Mayan pyramid, a simple hand clap can transform into the haunting chirp of the Quetzal bird, a sacred animal in their cosmology. The sound waves bounce off the precisely calculated angles of the stone stairs, creating this specific acoustic phenomenon. Half a world away, in the subterranean temples of Malta, certain rooms are designed as perfect resonating chambers. A deep, rhythmic chant spoken at one particular spot can be felt vibrating through the entire body, while remaining almost inaudible just a few steps away. These are not random acoustic accidents. The sound behaves in mathematically predictable patterns, directly tied to the geometry of the space. The precision of the stonework was the essential ingredient, creating reflective surfaces so true that they could guide sound waves with the same accuracy they displayed in aligning stars. This raises a profound question. Was this sonic mastery an intentional feature of their design? The evidence suggests it was integral to their purpose. In ceremonial contexts, sound could be used to alter states of consciousness, to create an awe-inspiring atmosphere during rituals, or to transmit specific vibrations believed to have healing properties. The ability to amplify a whisper across a large chamber or to create a disorienting echo could have been a powerful tool for a spiritual leader, but the applications may have extended to the practical as well. In a culture that moved multi-ton blocks, could they have used sound in a more direct physical way? The idea that specific resonant frequencies might temporarily reduce friction or make stone easier to manipulate is a tantalizing, though still unproven, theory. It connects the tool marks that look like vibrational cutting to the very method of moving the stones. This acoustic layer reveals a civilization that understood the physics of vibration as intimately as they understood geometry. They saw stone not as a dead, inert material, but as a medium that could be shaped to conduct energy, both seen and unseen. The perfect flatness of a wall was not just for visual harmony, it was a sonic mirror. The sharpness of an internal corner was not just a technical marvel, it was a precise waveguide for sound. This multifaceted expertise shows a people who are not just master builders, but master physicists, weaving together a unified science of form, function, and frequency that we are only now beginning to decode. The very stone they chose was an essential part of their secret. These master builders were not merely selecting rock, they were reading the geological history of the landscape, seeking out specific formations that held the key to their impossible precision. At the Aswan quarries in Egypt, they bypassed easier-to-reach sandstone to delve deep into the heart of the granite massif, targeting a particular seam of rose-red granite prized for its uniform crystalline structure and incredible durability. In the Bolivian Andes, they sought out andesite, a volcanic stone with a fine grain that could take and hold a razor-sharp edge. This was not random selection. It was a sophisticated understanding of materials science applied on a monumental scale. They knew that a stone with a consistent grain, free from hidden fractures or pockets of softer mineral, would not shatter unpredictably during carving. It would respond to their tools, whatever they may have been, in a controlled and predictable manner. Their geological knowledge extended to the very orientation of the crystals within the bedrock. By examining the natural cleavage planes and grain direction, they could determine the optimal way to separate a block from the living rock with minimal force and waste. This ensured the raw material itself was sound, a perfect canvas for their work. The quarries themselves are open-air laboratories of this lost technology. The unfinished obelisk at Aswan, still lying in its granite bed, provides a frozen moment in the extraction process. The channels carved around it are not rough and jagged, as if made by pounding stone balls. They are smooth, with clean, defined edges that suggest a controlled, almost surgical method of separation. How did they achieve this? One theory suggests they used a technique of thermal shock, perhaps by lighting fires along a predetermined line and then rapidly cooling the hot stone with water, creating microfractures that allowed for a clean break. Yet the precision of these channels challenges even that idea. Another possibility involves the use of specialized wedges, perhaps made from a lost, super-hard alloy, that could be driven into pre-cut slots to gently persuade the block free from the bedrock without the violent shock that would create internal flaws. This careful extraction was the critical first step. A block fractured by brute force would be useless for achieving the mirror-like finishes and perfect joints we find at the construction sites. The quarry was not just a source of raw material, it was the first stage of a precision manufacturing chain, where the quality control began the moment the stone was chosen. Transporting these raw, multi-ton blocks was the next great challenge in this chain. A block meticulously freed from the quarry face was still a fragile giant, its crystalline structure vulnerable to the immense stresses of movement. The conventional image of hundreds of workers dragging a stone on a sledge across the desert, while plausible for smaller loads, becomes problematic when we consider the need to protect the stone's integrity. A journey of dozens of miles across uneven terrain, with the block constantly jarring and shaking, would have created a web of microfractures within the material. These hidden flaws would have inevitably revealed themselves during the final, delicate carving process, causing the stone to chip or crack, ruining years of work. This suggests their transportation methods were as sophisticated as their quarrying. Perhaps the routes were meticulously prepared, with roadways leveled and reinforced to act as a stable guide. Some researchers propose the use of a cradle-like system that distributed the weight evenly and isolated the stone from direct impact. Legends of stones being made weightless by sound or chant, while seemingly mythical, point toward a persistent cultural memory of a technology that defied conventional physics. The successful arrival of an unflawed, raw block at the construction site was a testament not to brute force, but to a profound knowledge of logistics and material stress. It was the essential link that connected the perfect stone in the ground to the perfect wall rising against the sky. This relentless pursuit of perfection was never just about engineering. The flawless joints and mirror-smooth surfaces carried a weight far beyond their physical function. In a world where the cosmos was seen as a perfect mathematical order, to build with such precision was to replicate the divine on earth. The stone became a bridge between the human and the heavenly, for cultures like the Inca, whose entire worldview was built around the concept of harmony, or Mat for the Egyptians, which represented cosmic balance and truth. A perfectly cut stone was a physical prayer. It was a declaration that their kingdom, their temple, their very society was in alignment with the fundamental laws of the universe. This symbolic meaning transforms the stone from a simple building block into a sacred object. The enormous effort expended on details that would be invisible once the wall was complete, like the microscopic flatness of a surface that would be hidden behind another block, makes perfect sense in this context. The perfection was not for human eyes to admire, but for the gods to witness. It was an act of devotion, a testament to the belief that the divine resided in perfect geometry. We see this principle echoed in the creation of ritual objects. A ceremonial vase, polished to a liquid smoothness, was not merely a container. Its flawless form was believed to make it a suitable vessel for channeling spiritual energies or holding offerings worthy of the gods. The same symbolic precision appears in the regalia of power. A king's scepter, carved from a single piece of diorite with impossible symmetry, was not just a symbol of his authority, but a physical claim that his rule was as true and unshakable as the geometry of the stone itself. His power was legitimized by this connection to an eternal, perfect order. This stands in stark contrast to our modern priorities, where efficiency and cost often dictate that perfection is reserved only for surfaces that are immediately visible. For these ancient cultures, the value was inherent in the act of creation itself. The countless hours spent achieving an invisible, perfect seam were an investment in cosmic order, a tangible expression of their deepest beliefs about reality. The method of carving and the meaning behind it were inextricably linked. The technology that allowed for such precision was not a separate science, but a sacred art, a form of knowledge that empowered them to literally build their cosmology into the landscape. Understanding this symbolic dimension finally allows us to see these stones not as cold, puzzling artifacts, but as the profound spiritual and philosophical statements they were always intended to be. Modern workshops echo with the sound of a different kind of quest, one that uses traditional tools to test the limits of ancient possibility. Skilled stonemasons and dedicated researchers have taken up the challenge, attempting to recreate the perfect joints and mirror finishes using only the tools we believe were available: copper chisels, stone hammers, sand, and water. The results are humbling. An artisan can, with immense effort and weeks of time, shape a block of granite into a rough approximation of the ancient forms. But the outcome is always a surface pitted with the chaotic scars of a violent struggle, a far cry from the preternaturally smooth plains found at Pumapunku or in the Serapeum. The fine, parallel grooves seen under a microscope are entirely absent, replaced by random, crushing fractures. One university project focused on replicating the intricate interlocking joints of Andean walls. Using teams of workers and stone tools, they managed to shape two polygonal blocks to fit together. The joint was stable, a testament to the basic soundness of the concept, but the fit was coarse. You could slide a coin, even a finger, into the gap. achieving a seam thinner than a razor blade. With the complex three-dimensional geometry of the original stones proved entirely beyond their reach. The sheer time and labor involved were also staggering, suggesting that building an entire fortress with such methods would have required generations of uninterrupted, perfect work. Where these experiments succeed is in highlighting the profound knowledge of the original artisans. They reveal that simply having the tools is not enough. You need an intimate, almost spiritual understanding of the stone's grain, knowing exactly how and where to strike to persuade it to break along a desired line, a skill that would take a lifetime to master. Yet, even the most gifted modern craftsperson using these methods cannot achieve the final, impossible layer of precision. The microscopic evidence, the flawless flatness, the sharp internal corners all remain stubbornly out of reach. These failed attempts are not failures at all. They are valuable data points. They help us separate the puzzles we might solve with a better application of known techniques from those that point toward something else entirely, a different branch of physics or a lost technological principle. Each swing of a stone hammer that fails to produce a mirror finish brings us closer to a profound appreciation for the unique and still missing skills of the original builders. Their silence is not a void but a guide, showing us where to look next for the true secret behind the stone. The stone itself holds clues to a process that was more fluid than we ever imagined. Across these ancient sites, from the high deserts of Egypt to the mountain plateaus of Peru, archaeologists consistently find evidence of sophisticated water management systems intricately linked to the areas of finest stonework. At the base of the Giza plateau, channels and basins carved directly into the bedrock suggest a deliberate, gravity-fed network for moving water exactly where it was needed. These are not just incidental features, they are precision-engineered infrastructure, as carefully planned as the structures they helped to build. Water was far more than a basic necessity for the workers. It was an essential tool in their quest for perfection. Imagine the process of shaping a 100-ton granite block with nothing but sand and a simple copper saw. The friction would be immense, generating heat that would quickly soften and destroy the metal tool. But with a constant, controlled flow of water, everything changes. The water acts as a coolant, preventing the tool from overheating, while simultaneously carrying a slurry of fine abrasive sand into the cut. This mixture of water and hard quartz particles transforms a simple copper blade into an effective cutting instrument, slowly, patiently grinding its way through the toughest stone. This hydraulic abrasive process explains the remarkably smooth, planar surfaces we see, as the even flow of water ensures a consistent, uniform cut. But the use of water may have extended far beyond simple lubrication. Some researchers point to the curious, perfectly circular holes drilled deep into granite as evidence of a more advanced technique. A tubular drill, perhaps made of copper, would be used with a steady stream of water and abrasive. As the drill rotated, the abrasive slurry did the actual cutting, and the constant hydraulic pressure would help to flush out the ground-up stone particles, keeping the cutting face clean and the process efficient. The feed lines left on the sides of these drill holes, those parallel grooves we see under magnification, are a direct result of this continuous, pressurized flow. This was not a brutal, percussive act. It was a controlled, fluid mechanical process. The builders were harnessing hydraulic principles to achieve a level of precision that brute force could never provide. The very presence of these elaborate water channels at the most precise work sites is a silent testament to a forgotten truth. Their mastery was not just over solid stone, but over the liquid that made the stone obey. Precision on this scale demanded a social machine of equal perfection. The flawless stonework we marvel at today was not the product of a few isolated geniuses, but the output of a highly structured, meticulously organized society. To coordinate the efforts of master craftspeople across generations, a sophisticated system of training and knowledge transfer was essential. An apprentice would not learn this level of skill in a few years. They would begin as a child, perhaps by fetching water and abrasives, slowly absorbing the rhythms and sounds of the workshop. Their first tasks would be simple, like roughing out the shape of a block, always under the watchful eye of a master. This was a lifelong commitment, a sacred trust where the secrets of geometry, material science, and the subtle feel of the stone were passed down through direct, hands-on experience. The knowledge was not written in books, but encoded in muscle memory and refined practice. This ensured that the standard of quality remained unbroken, that every stone cut by a new generation of artisans met the exacting specifications of their ancestors. The result was a living library of technical expertise, an unbroken chain of mastery that could sustain a building project for centuries. The logistics of such an endeavor are staggering to contemplate. Imagine a single construction site where teams of quarrymen, transporters, rough masons, and finishing specialists all had to work in perfect synchrony. The flow of materials had to be precisely timed. A 100-ton block, perfectly extracted from a quarry miles away, would arrive at the site only when the foundation was ready to receive it. The rough masons would begin their work shaping the general form before the master finishers took over to achieve those final, impossible tolerances. This required a project management system of breathtaking efficiency. There must have been master architects who held the overall blueprint, not on papyrus or parchment, but in their minds and in full-scale diagrams etched into stone pavements or smoothed clay floors. These overseers would have coordinated the work of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of specialized laborers, ensuring that each unique, polygonal block was shaped to fit only its designated place in the grand design. This was a symphony of human effort, conducted with a precision that ensured every component, from the mightiest lintel to the smallest wedge stone, arrived at the right moment and fit on the first attempt. How did they maintain such rigorous quality control across a sprawling workforce? The stones themselves provide the answer. They are the final inspection report. The fact that we see the same microscopic precision in a temple wall built 500 years after a fortress suggests an unyielding standard that transcended individual reigns or even dynasties. There must have been master inspectors, individuals with the authority to reject a block that deviated by even a hair's breadth from the geometric ideal. This level of consistency points to a powerful central authority, one that valued technological perfection above all else. This was not a society where the craftspeople were simple laborers. They were the guardians of a sacred science, highly respected and supported by the entire cultural apparatus. Their work was deemed essential to the cosmic order, and thus the entire social and economic structure was organized to facilitate it. The food, shelter, and tools for these vast workforces had to be supplied without interruption. The administrative backbone needed to support this technological marvel was, in its own way, as impressive as the stonework it produced. It reveals a civilization that understood a profound truth, that the greatest human achievements are never the work of a single hand, but the culmination of a society perfectly aligned toward a common, glorious purpose. The echo of this lost precision did not simply fade into silence. It rippled across centuries, influencing the very foundations of later architectural marvels. While the supreme mastery of shaping stone to an atomic level appears to have vanished, its ghost lingered in the building traditions that followed. The Inca, who built upon the ruins of far older sites like Pumapunku, adopted and adapted the polygonal masonry style. Their walls in Cusco, though perhaps not reaching the same microscopic perfection, demonstrate a clear inheritance of the interlocking principle, creating structures of immense strength and seismic resilience. This was not a direct transfer of the original technology, but a reverence for its form and function. The knowledge was likely passed down through generations of master artisans, preserved in oral traditions and encoded in the symbolic language of their craft. A master stonemason would teach his apprentice not just how to cut a stone, but why a certain angle provided strength, or how a particular joint could withstand the earth's tremors. This was practical knowledge wrapped in cultural memory, a dim reflection of a once brilliant light. Far across the world, a similar phenomenon may have occurred. The sheer ambition of Egyptian pyramid construction, the precise orientation and massive scale, could have been inspired by a much older cultural memory of what was possible. Later Roman engineers, famed for their concrete and arches, also displayed a profound respect for the megalithic works they encountered, often repurposing impossibly heavy stone blocks in their own foundations, as if acknowledging a technology they could no longer replicate. The legacy is not always in the perfect copy, but in the inspiration, the drive to build with precision, to create structures that harmonize with the cosmos and defy time itself, seems to have been ignited by these ancient examples. The principles of seismic flexibility, of geometric harmony, and of choosing enduring materials all resurface in different forms across the ages. This suggests that while the specific tools and techniques may have been lost, the underlying philosophy of mastery was not entirely forgotten. It was a seed that lay dormant, waiting for the right conditions to sprout again in new forms. The true influence of these master builders, therefore, extends far beyond the stones they left behind. It lives on in the very spirit of human ambition, in our perpetual drive to reach for perfection, and in the silent, enduring challenge their work presents to every generation that follows. These silent stones are more than an archaeological curiosity. They are a profound challenge to our entire understanding of human history. Our journey through this world of atomic-level precision has revealed a civilization whose technological achievements continue to baffle and inspire modern science. From the seamless joints that have withstood millennia of earthquakes to the perfectly smooth surfaces that rival our own machine shops, the evidence points to a knowledge and skill set we are still struggling to fully comprehend. These ancient masters of stone remind us that human ingenuity can achieve the remarkable, even with what we might consider limited tools. The sheer scale of their ambition, combined with this microscopic attention to detail, forces us to reconsider the very definition of progress. These mysteries we have explored together challenge us to keep questioning, to keep researching, and to appreciate the incredible depths of ancient wisdom. As we continue to unravel these puzzles, each new discovery, whether from a laser scan or a fresh look at an old legend, brings us one step closer to understanding the full, breathtaking scope of human potential. The stones themselves stand as eternal witnesses to a level of craftsmanship that continues to speak across the centuries. Their silent, perfect forms an open invitation for us to look ever deeper into our shared and mysterious past. This journey into the heart of ancient stone is far from over, and your perspective is a vital part of the ongoing search. If this exploration of impossible precision has sparked your own curiosity, I invite you to share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. What single aspect of this stone carving mystery captivates you the most? Is it the method of transportation, the tools that left no trace, or the profound mathematical knowledge embedded in the walls? To ensure you are part of our continuing investigations into history's greatest puzzles, be sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell. Your engagement and support fuel this channel, allowing us to bring you more content that challenges conventional timelines and explores the furthest boundaries of ancient innovation. Let's build a community of curious minds together, uncovering the secrets of our past one remarkable mystery at a time.